Stop Being a Sucker, Nobody Cares. Focus on Your Life, written by Justin Tracy, published by Simple Audiobooks. Introduction. The introduction of Stop Being a Sucker, Nobody Cares. Focus on Your Life takes a deeply analytical and unapologetically candid approach to the pervasive problem of living life through the lens of others' expectations. It begins by examining the invisible web of societal pressures that influences nearly every aspect of modern existence. From an early age, people are conditioned to seek approval from external sources: parents, teachers, peers, employers, and, increasingly, faceless audiences on social media. This approval-driven mindset is so ingrained that many don't even realize how much of their identity and decision-making is shaped by it. The introduction highlights this as a core issue: the tendency to prioritize the opinions, judgments, and preferences of others over one's own values, desires, and aspirations. One of the first truths the book presents is a profound yet liberating observation. Most people are too wrapped up in their own lives to care deeply about yours. This is not a dismissal of human connection or relationships, but rather an acknowledgement of reality. People's thoughts, worries, and judgments about you are fleeting, often overshadowed by their own concerns, fears, and ambitions. The book asks readers to internalize this idea, not as an excuse to act recklessly, but as a tool to shed the paralyzing fear of judgment. This shift in perspective is empowering because it dismantles the illusion of constant scrutiny and liberates readers from the exhausting pursuit of perfection. The introduction explores the psychological mechanisms that drive the need for validation, tracing them back to evolutionary and social factors. Humans, as social beings, are hardwired to seek belonging and acceptance, but in the modern age, this instinct has become distorted. The rise of social media has exacerbated these tendencies, creating an environment where likes, shares, and comments have become metrics for self-worth. The book argues that this reliance on external validation not only leads to dissatisfaction, but also traps individuals in a cycle of insecurity. It compels them to make decisions based on what will garner approval rather than what will bring fulfillment. The book doesn't stop at diagnosing the problem. It also challenges readers to reflect on their own behaviors and thought patterns. Are you choosing your career because it aligns with your passions, or because it looks impressive on a resume? Are you posting on social media to share genuine moments, or to curate an image that will attract admiration? Are your relationships built on mutual respect and connection, or are they transactional, driven by a desire to be liked? These questions are designed to provoke discomfort, because it is in confronting uncomfortable truths that meaningful change begins. Time emerges as a recurring theme in the introduction. It emphasizes that life is finite, and that every moment spent worrying about others' opinions is a moment stolen from pursuing your true potential. The book drives home the point that the energy you expend trying to fit into molds or meet expectations is energy that could be invested in building the life you actually want. This shift in focus from external validation to internal fulfillment is presented as a transformative process, one that requires courage, clarity, and commitment. The introduction also delves into the emotional toll of living for others. It discusses the feelings of inadequacy, frustration, and burnout that arise when you constantly seek to please everyone but yourself. It examines how this pattern can lead to resentment not only toward others, but also toward oneself for allowing it to continue. Breaking this cycle requires setting boundaries, redefining priorities, and cultivating a sense of self-worth that is independent of external input. The book frames this journey as both challenging and rewarding, promising that the discomfort of change is far outweighed by the freedom and empowerment that come with it. By addressing these issues head-on, the introduction lays the groundwork for a transformative journey. It's not about encouraging selfishness or disregard for others, but about redefining what it means to care. Caring about yourself, your growth, happiness, and well-being is presented as the most important priority. When you stop being consumed by what others think, you create space to build a life that aligns with your core values. This is not a passive process. It requires active effort to unlearn toxic habits, challenge limiting beliefs, and embrace a mindset that prioritizes self-reliance and personal accountability. Ultimately, the introduction serves as both a critique of modern societal norms and a call to action. It invites readers to step back and question the narratives they've been living by. Who benefits from your constant need to seek approval? Is it truly serving you, or is it holding you back? The book asserts that the answers to these questions lie within, and the journey toward finding them is the first step in reclaiming your life. By stripping away the layers of societal conditioning and embracing the liberating truth that nobody cares, you can finally focus on what truly matters, building a life that is meaningful, fulfilling, and authentically yours. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Importance. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Importance offers a profound and detailed examination of a deeply ingrained societal fallacy, the belief that our every move is of critical significance to those around us. It begins by highlighting how this illusion is perpetuated by the modern world, particularly through the omnipresent influence of social media. Platforms that were initially designed to connect people now function as stages where everyone feels compelled to perform. Whether it's curating the perfect image, sharing milestones, or even showcasing vulnerability, the underlying goal is often the same: to be seen and acknowledged. The chapter argues that this constant striving for attention fosters a distorted sense of self-importance, making individuals believe that their actions, successes, and failures are being meticulously observed and judged by others. The chapter explores how this illusion manifests in everyday life. People agonize over decisions, fearing how they will be perceived. They second-guess their choices, worrying about potential criticism, and they avoid risks, paralyzed by the thought of failure being publicly scrutinized. Yet, the truth is far simpler and much less dramatic. Most people are too consumed by their own concerns, insecurities, and aspirations to notice or care deeply about what others are doing. The chapter unpacks this truth, explaining that while it may initially feel unsettling to realize that you're not the center of everyone's attention, it is actually a gift. This realization allows you to shed the heavy burden of trying to appear perfect or impressive, granting you the freedom to focus on what truly matters to you. The illusion of importance goes further to explore the historical and psychological roots of this phenomenon. Humans are social creatures, and for much of history, being part of a community was essential for survival. As a result, people evolved to care deeply about how they were perceived by their peers. However, in the modern world, where survival is no longer dependent on tribal acceptance, this instinct has become exaggerated and misplaced. The chapter explains how societal norms, reinforced by media and cultural narratives, have turned this instinct into a form of self-sabotage. Instead of using social feedback as a tool for growth, many people become trapped in cycles of overthinking, self-criticism, and futile attempts to please everyone. The chapter also addresses the toll this illusion takes on mental and emotional well-being. By constantly seeking to project an image of significance, people deplete their energy, lower their self-esteem, and lose sight of their authentic selves. This performance-driven mindset not only erodes personal happiness, but also leads to shallow relationships and unfulfilling pursuits. People begin to chase what looks good or what others deem valuable, rather than pursuing their own passions and goals. The chapter provides vivid examples of how this plays out, such as choosing a career based on prestige rather than interest, or staying in toxic relationships out of fear of judgment. One of the key insights of the chapter is the idea that importance is subjective and transient. What seems monumental today may be forgotten tomorrow, especially in a world saturated with information and distractions. The chapter invites readers to reflect on moments they've spent agonizing over decisions or obsessing over their image, only to realize later that nobody else noticed or cared. This perspective shift is transformative because it reveals the futility of trying to control how others perceive you. Instead, the chapter encourages readers to redirect their focus inward, asking themselves what truly matters and aligning their actions with their own values. To help readers break free from this illusion, the chapter offers practical advice. It suggests exercises for challenging the belief that everyone is watching, such as experimenting with vulnerability or stepping outside of comfort zones to see how little external reactions actually matter. It encourages readers to embrace the idea of freedom in insignificance, where the recognition that you're not the center of attention becomes a source of empowerment rather than despair. This mindset shift allows you to take risks, make mistakes, and explore new opportunities without the fear of constant judgment. Ultimately, the illusion of importance is about reclaiming your life from the grip of external expectations. It urges readers to stop wasting their energy on crafting a facade and start investing in building a life that is meaningful on their own terms. By breaking down the illusion that others are constantly evaluating your worth, the chapter lays the foundation for a more authentic, fulfilling existence, one where you are free to focus on what truly brings you joy and satisfaction without the weight of imagined scrutiny. Chapter 2, Nobody Cares, and That's a Good Thing. Chapter 2, Nobody Cares, and That's a Good Thing, dismantles the pervasive fear that others are constantly evaluating and judging us, revealing it to be one of the most liberating realizations we can embrace. The chapter begins by highlighting the common yet irrational belief that every choice, action, or mistake we make is being scrutinized and remembered by those around us. This belief, rooted in our evolutionary need for social belonging, often causes individuals to modify their behavior, avoid risks, and seek approval in an attempt to safeguard their reputation. The chapter argues that while this instinct may have served a purpose in ancient times, it is counterproductive in the modern world, where most people are far too preoccupied with their own lives to give more than a fleeting thought to yours. To illustrate this point, the chapter draws on psychological studies and real-world examples to show how limited people's attention spans are when it comes to others' lives. It explains that the average person is consumed with their own struggles, dreams, insecurities, and daily responsibilities. As a result, even if someone notices your misstep, your unusual choice, or your moment of vulnerability, it will likely be forgotten as quickly as it was observed. This isn't because people are indifferent or unkind, but because they are human, naturally focused on their own narratives. The chapter emphasizes that this self-centered tendency is universal, applying equally to you and everyone else. Just as you are not hyper-aware of others' mistakes or choices, they are not hyper-aware of yours. This realization, while initially unsettling for those who crave external validation, is ultimately a source of immense freedom. If nobody is truly paying close attention to your flaws or failures, then the pressure to live up to others' expectations diminishes. The chapter reframes this idea as a profound opportunity. You are free to take risks, try new things, and even fail without the crushing fear of being judged. It argues that the belief in constant scrutiny is a mental prison that holds people back from living boldly, and breaking free from it is essential for personal growth and happiness. The chapter delves into how the fear of judgment manifests in everyday life, from overthinking a minor social faux pas to avoiding ambitious goals out of fear of public failure. It provides examples of how people self-sabotage by prioritizing appearances over authenticity, choosing the safe path because it seems more acceptable or admirable to others. By clinging to the illusion that others care deeply, individuals limit their potential and rob themselves of the joy that comes from pursuing their own passions and values. The chapter invites readers to confront these tendencies by asking tough questions. Are the opinions you fear even real? Or are they projections of your own insecurities? Are you letting imagined judgments dictate your choices, and at what cost? To reinforce its message, the chapter shares anecdotes of people who embraced the reality that nobody cares and used it as a catalyst for change. These stories highlight how liberating it can be to stop worrying about others' perceptions, whether it's the entrepreneur who risked failure to launch a business, or the individual who left a prestigious job to follow a creative passion. These examples show that embracing this mindset enables you to prioritize what truly matters. The chapter emphasizes that life is too short to be governed by the opinions of people who, more often than not, aren't even thinking about you. In addition to breaking down the myth of constant scrutiny, the chapter provides practical strategies for internalizing this truth. It encourages readers to experiment with vulnerability, such as sharing an unpopular opinion or trying something new, to see firsthand how little others react or care. It also advocates for cultivating self-compassion and resilience, as these qualities help you navigate any rare moments of judgment with confidence. By shifting the focus inward and building a strong sense of self-worth, you become less reliant on external validation and more capable of pursuing your goals unapologetically. Ultimately, the chapter delivers a transformative message: nobody cares. And that's not a reflection of apathy, but a testament to the shared human experience of being absorbed in our own lives. This realization is not just freeing, it's empowering. It gives you permission to live authentically, to make mistakes, and to grow without the weight of imagined judgment holding you back. By accepting that others are not fixated on you, you can finally focus on what truly matters, creating a life that aligns with your values, passions, and purpose. This chapter serves as a powerful reminder that the freedom to live boldly is yours to claim, and the only person who needs to care about your life is you. Chapter 3. Focus on your own lane. Chapter 3. Focus on your own lane goes in depth into the destructive impact of constantly comparing yourself to others and underscores the importance of focusing on your own unique path in life. It opens by addressing the universal temptation to look outward and measure yourself against what others are doing, particularly in a world where social media highlights the curated best parts of people's lives. The chapter explains that these comparisons, whether they're based on someone's career success, personal achievements, or material possessions, can lead to feelings of inadequacy and anxiety. Social media has magnified this tendency, making it even easier to get caught up in comparing your behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. However, the chapter stresses that what we often fail to acknowledge in these comparisons is the absence of context. Rarely does anyone share the struggles, failures, or setbacks they encounter along the way, which means we are judging ourselves against an unrealistic and incomplete picture. The chapter breaks down how the habit of comparing yourself to others drains your energy, confidence, and focus. Each time you divert your attention to someone else's progress, whether it's their career advancements, relationships, or lifestyle choices, you lose a moment that could be spent improving your own circumstances. This constant mental shift towards keeping up with others not only leaves you feeling overwhelmed and frustrated, but also keeps you stuck in a cycle where external factors, such as other people's lives, dictate your sense of self-worth and success. The chapter illustrates how this cycle works. The more you look at others, the more you feel like you're lagging behind, even if you are making significant strides towards your own goals. This comparison traps you in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, as you're always chasing someone else's idea of success instead of embracing and building your own. To break free from this, the chapter advocates for a focused, intentional approach to life, where the primary emphasis is placed on what truly matters to you, your values, aspirations, and vision for your future. It encourages readers to create a clear, personal roadmap that reflects their own goals, not the ones society or others impose. When you define success on your own terms, you stop feeling the need to measure yourself against the constantly shifting standards of others. By focusing on your own lane, you begin to see that life is a deeply personal journey. Just because someone else seems to be ahead doesn't mean you're falling behind. They're simply on a different path with different circumstances. The chapter stresses that success and fulfillment are not linear or competitive, but are shaped by the unique challenges and experiences you encounter. The chapter also dives into the psychological benefits of focusing inward rather than outward. It explains that when you consistently turn your attention to your own lane, you build resilience and self-assurance. You begin to trust in your own journey, recognizing that your timeline is valid and worthy, regardless of what anyone else is doing. The chapter advises taking regular pauses to reflect on personal growth, noting that progress is not always visible or immediate, but it accumulates over time. One of the key ideas is that small, consistent actions, even if they seem insignificant, add up to a life that is rich in purpose and satisfaction. By focusing on your own progress rather than obsessing over where you stand compared to others, you nurture your own sense of fulfillment, which can never be fully captured or measured by comparison. Practical strategies are offered throughout the chapter to help readers stop falling into the trap of comparison. These include setting clear, realistic goals that align with your values, establishing boundaries with social media or environments that trigger feelings of inadequacy, and cultivating a daily practice of gratitude to celebrate your own progress, no matter how small. The chapter emphasizes the importance of limiting exposure to content or people that make you feel like you're not doing enough, encouraging instead a focus on what brings you joy, inspiration, and motivation. The chapter also suggests journaling or self-reflection as tools to help realign your thoughts and remind you of your personal growth, reinforcing the idea that each individual's path is unique and valuable. Furthermore, the chapter reframes the idea of success. It encourages readers to stop thinking of life as a race where there is only one winner, and instead view it as an ongoing process of self-improvement. Success, according to the chapter, isn't about outperforming others, but about staying true to your own path, learning from your mistakes, and gradually building the life you want. The chapter addresses how the pressure to compare often stems from a fear of being left behind or not achieving enough, yet this fear is rooted in an illusion. Life is not about achieving someone else's version of success. It's about defining your own success and continuously moving forward toward your own goals, without the distraction of where others are on their journey. In the chapter's conclusion, the message is clear. Focusing on your own lane is an act of empowerment. By constantly redirecting your attention away from others' lives and back to your own, you reclaim your time, energy, and sense of purpose. The chapter reinforces the idea that the only person you need to compete with is yourself, striving to be better than you were yesterday, rather than measuring your progress against anyone else. By embracing this mindset, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of comparison and begin to enjoy the peace that comes from knowing that your journey is just as valuable and important as anyone else's. Focusing on your own lane allows you to live authentically, pursue your goals with determination, and create a life that feels deeply meaningful and aligned with who you are. Chapter 4. The Approval Trap. Chapter 4. The Approval Trap provides an in-depth exploration of the pervasive and often unconscious human tendency to seek external validation in all areas of life, whether in relationships, career, or social circles. It opens by examining the foundational need for approval, which is deeply embedded in the human psyche from childhood. As children, we are taught to seek approval from authority figures like parents, teachers, and peers. This external validation reinforces our sense of self-worth and helps us understand societal norms and expectations. Over time, however, this instinctive drive for approval evolves into a pervasive pattern that shapes our decision-making processes well into adulthood. The chapter argues that, while seeking approval for their natural human behavior, it can become problematic when it leads individuals to make decisions based solely on how they believe others will perceive them, rather than based on their own values, desires, or goals. The approval trap often manifests in subtle ways, from making career choices to pleasing friends or family, or with the underlying motive of avoiding judgment or rejection. The chapter explores how, as adults, this desire for approval becomes more complex and can affect everything from professional ambitions to personal relationships. People might choose careers not because they are passionate about them, but because they are seen as prestigious or lucrative. Similarly, in personal relationships, individuals often shape their behaviors or beliefs to match what they think others expect of them, suppressing their authentic selves to fit in or avoid conflict. This constant cycle of trying to gain approval from others creates a barrier to living authentically, as people become increasingly detached from their own values, leading to a sense of dissatisfaction and unfulfillment. The chapter provides psychological insights into why people fall into the approval trap in the first place. It highlights the social and evolutionary origins of approval-seeking behavior. Humans have always depended on social bonds for survival, which makes the approval of others feel essential. Yet in the modern world, where survival is no longer tied to fitting into a tribe, this need for approval can become an unhealthy obsession. The chapter notes how cultural forces, such as the rise of social media, amplify this need, making approval seeking more prevalent than ever. Social media platforms reward users with likes, comments, and shares, creating an environment where validation is instant and addictive. This constant cycle of seeking approval online, whether it's through the image you project or the opinions you share, perpetuates the approval trap, reinforcing the idea that your self-worth is contingent on how others perceive you. Moreover, the chapter discusses the emotional toll of living in the approval trap. Seeking validation from others often results in anxiety, fear of rejection, and low self-esteem. When people base their sense of self-worth on external validation, they become vulnerable to the judgment of others. Every critique or failure can feel like a personal attack, and every success is fleeting, as it is only meaningful if it leads to further approval. This creates an emotional rollercoaster where individuals constantly chase after praise, while simultaneously fearing failure or judgment. The chapter emphasizes that this fear of disapproval can lead to procrastination, indecision, and missed opportunities. People become so preoccupied with what others think that they hesitate to make decisions or take risks, even when those actions align with their true aspirations. The approval trap also fosters a deep sense of resentment. When people give so much of themselves to gain approval from others and never receive the validation they seek, frustration builds. They may feel that their efforts are unappreciated or that their true selves are being overlooked. Over time, this resentment can erode relationships and foster bitterness, as people come to realize that they have compromised their authenticity in exchange for fleeting approval. The chapter highlights how this dynamic plays out in both personal and professional settings, leading to burnout and dissatisfaction. By constantly striving to meet others' expectations, individuals lose sight of what they truly want, creating a void that cannot be filled by external recognition. To address the approval trap, the chapter offers practical advice on how to break free from its hold. First, it emphasizes the importance of self-awareness and reflection. It encourages readers to examine their motivations for seeking approval and identify areas of their lives where they are sacrificing authenticity in exchange for validation. By questioning whether the pursuit of approval aligns with their true values, individuals can start to disentangle themselves from the trap. The chapter also advocates for cultivating self-compassion and self-acceptance, as these qualities enable individuals to appreciate their intrinsic worth without relying on external feedback. This can be achieved by acknowledging that no one's opinion can define your value or determine your happiness. Instead, it's essential to focus on what brings genuine joy and fulfillment. Another key strategy discussed in the chapter is learning to set boundaries. This involves saying no to people or situations that demand constant approval, or that require you to act in ways that do not align with your values. The chapter provides examples of how setting boundaries can help individuals regain control over their lives and make decisions that are in their best interest, rather than being driven by the fear of disapproval. It also encourages readers to embrace the discomfort that comes with standing firm in their choices, reminding them that disapproval from others is often a reflection of their own insecurities, not an indictment of your worth. The chapter concludes by emphasizing that freedom from the approval trap is not about rejecting others or becoming isolated, but rather about reclaiming your own voice, desires, and sense of self. By learning to trust your instincts and prioritize your own happiness over external approval, you unlock the ability to live authentically. This, in turn, creates a deeper sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, and inner peace. Breaking free from the approval trap is not an easy task, but the chapter assures readers that it is a necessary and transformative step toward living a life that is truly their own. The reward for this freedom is the ability to make decisions that reflect your true self, the courage to pursue your own path without the constant fear of judgment, and a deeper connection with people who appreciate you for who you genuinely are, not for the approval you can provide. Chapter 5. Unlearning Toxic Behaviors. Chapter 5. Unlearning Toxic Behaviors delves deep into the process of recognizing and dismantling harmful behaviors and thought patterns that hinder personal growth and authenticity. These toxic behaviors often form early in life as coping mechanisms in response to difficult environments, trauma, or societal pressures, and they become deeply embedded in the way we interact with the world. The chapter begins by identifying common toxic behaviors, such as self-sabotage, perfectionism, avoidance, people-pleasing, and negative self-talk, and it emphasizes how these behaviors, while once protective or adaptive in some way, no longer serve us as adults. For instance, people-pleasing might have developed in childhood as a means of seeking love or approval from parents or caregivers, but as an adult, it leads to a lack of boundaries and a constant feeling of depletion. Similarly, self-sabotage often stems from deep-seated feelings of unworthiness or fear of failure, which can manifest in procrastination or making choices that ultimately hinder success. The chapter stresses that unlearning these toxic behaviors requires a deep understanding of their origins, which is often not easy to uncover. Many people engage in harmful behaviors without even realizing it, because they have become second nature. So the first step in breaking free from them is developing self-awareness. The chapter encourages readers to spend time reflecting on their habits, thought processes, and emotional triggers to identify patterns that are no longer serving their best interests. Self-awareness is key to making the necessary changes, as it allows individuals to pinpoint when and why certain toxic behaviors arise. For example, someone might recognize that their perfectionism is rooted in an underlying fear of rejection or failure, and that this fear causes them to procrastinate on important tasks because they feel paralyzed by the idea that nothing they do will ever be good enough. Once this connection is made, the individual can begin the process of dismantling this behavior by actively confronting the fear that underlies it. The chapter also explores the concept of emotional resilience and how it plays a significant role in unlearning toxic behaviors. Many of the toxic behaviors people engage in are mechanisms for avoiding emotional discomfort, whether it's numbing difficult emotions through substances, avoiding confrontation, or clinging to relationships that aren't healthy. These behaviors are often a way of trying to cope with pain, uncertainty, or vulnerability. However, these temporary solutions only reinforce the cycle of toxicity, preventing individuals from fully experiencing and processing their emotions. The chapter advocates for embracing emotional resilience as a way of confronting difficult feelings head-on. By allowing ourselves to feel and process emotions like fear, sadness, and anger in a healthy way, we begin to break the cycle of avoidance and move towards more constructive responses. Another critical aspect discussed in the chapter is the role of self-compassion in the process of unlearning toxic behaviors. The chapter emphasizes that it's easy to become frustrated with oneself when attempting to break old habits, but this frustration can lead to feelings of guilt or shame, which only reinforce the negative behavior. Instead, self-compassion involves recognizing that change is a process, not an immediate transformation, and that setbacks are a normal part of this journey. The chapter suggests that individuals practice self-compassion by treating themselves with the same kindness and understanding they would offer to a friend going through a similar process. This perspective allows for a more forgiving and patient approach to personal growth, which can ultimately lead to lasting change. Furthermore, the chapter discusses the importance of replacing toxic behaviors with healthier alternatives. It emphasizes that merely recognizing a negative behavior isn't enough. Individuals must actively work to replace these habits with more positive, constructive actions. For instance, instead of engaging in people-pleasing by constantly saying yes to others' demands, the chapter encourages readers to practice saying no and setting firm boundaries that honor their own needs and priorities. By gradually introducing healthier alternatives, such as mindful communication, self-assertiveness, and seeking support from trusted individuals, people can begin to build a foundation of behaviors that promote their well-being. The chapter also highlights the role of mindfulness in this process, explaining how mindfulness can help individuals stay present, aware of their triggers, and able to respond to challenging situations in a calm and deliberate way. The chapter doesn't just focus on the internal work, but also emphasizes the importance of external support when unlearning toxic behaviors. It encourages individuals to seek help from mentors, therapists, or support groups, as these resources can provide guidance, encouragement, and accountability. These external sources of support can help individuals navigate the difficult process of change, offering perspectives and tools that they might not have access to on their own. The chapter stresses that transformation is rarely a solitary endeavor, and surrounding oneself with a supportive community can make the process easier and more effective. In addition, the chapter highlights the significance of self-reflection and journaling as tools for self-discovery and growth. Writing about experiences, emotions, and the process of change allows individuals to gain clarity on their thoughts and behaviors, and it can serve as a powerful way to track progress over time. The chapter encourages readers to reflect regularly on their journey and acknowledge even small victories, as this can help maintain motivation and reinforce the idea that change is possible. It stresses that personal growth is not always linear, and there will be times when old behaviors resurface, but the key is to approach these setbacks with curiosity rather than judgment. This approach allows individuals to learn from their mistakes without becoming discouraged or losing sight of their goals. Finally, the chapter ties the process of unlearning toxic behaviors to a larger vision of personal freedom and authenticity. It argues that breaking free from toxic behaviors is not just about eliminating bad habits, but also about reclaiming your true self. As people shed these toxic behaviors, they make room for the authentic, empowered versions of themselves to emerge. The chapter concludes by encouraging readers to take ownership of their personal growth, to trust the process, and to embrace the possibility of living a life that is aligned with their true values and desires, free from the constraints of past conditioning and societal pressures. By unlearning toxic behaviors, individuals can experience a deeper sense of freedom, peace, and fulfillment as they begin to live in accordance with their true selves, rather than the limiting beliefs and habits they have outgrown. Chapter 6. Overcoming the Fear of Failure. Chapter 6. Overcoming the Fear of Failure offers an in-depth exploration of how fear of failure is a fundamental obstacle that keeps many people from pursuing their goals, dreams, and passions. It begins by addressing the root causes of this fear, tracing it back to early childhood experiences where failure might have been met with criticism, punishment, or disappointment from parents, teachers, or peers. These formative experiences create a lasting association between failure and negative emotions such as shame, guilt, or feelings of inadequacy. This internalized fear becomes a powerful force that affects a person's ability to take risks, make decisions, or even start new ventures. The chapter explains that, as adults, people often carry this fear into their professional and personal lives, where they may avoid new challenges or opportunities simply because of the potential for failure. The fear of failure can manifest in many ways, including procrastination, perfectionism, self-doubt, and a constant need for reassurance or approval from others. It may also prevent people from setting big goals, as they preemptively assume that they will fail, causing them to settle for mediocrity or play it safe in a way that ultimately stifles growth and potential. The chapter goes on to examine how society's cultural narrative around success and failure exacerbates this fear. From a young age, many individuals are taught that success is the ultimate goal and failure is to be avoided at all costs. Media, social norms, and even educational systems often emphasize achievement, which leads people to believe that failure is a personal flaw, rather than an inevitable and valuable part of the process of growth and learning. This narrative creates immense pressure, as individuals internalize the idea that failing means they are inadequate or unworthy. And this fear of judgment keeps them from fully pursuing their ambitions. The chapter emphasizes that this is a distorted view of failure, rather than seeing it as something shameful or to be avoided at all costs. Failure should be reframed as a necessary and integral part of success. The most successful people in history, whether in business, sports, or creative endeavors, have faced repeated failures, but they use these experiences to build resilience, refine their skills, and improve their strategies. The chapter asserts that failure is often a sign that a person is pushing themselves beyond their comfort zone, taking risks, and striving for progress. The discussion moves into practical ways to overcome the fear of failure, starting with the importance of shifting one's mindset. The chapter introduces the concept of a growth mindset, which is the belief that abilities and intelligence are not fixed, but can be developed through effort, practice, and learning from mistakes. This mindset contrasts with a fixed mindset, where individuals believe that their abilities are innate and unchangeable, and that failure is a reflection of their inherent limitations. The chapter encourages readers to cultivate a growth mindset by viewing failure as an opportunity to learn rather than as an indication of personal inadequacy. In this framework, failure is no longer something to be feared or avoided, but rather a stepping stone on the path to mastery and success. It also stresses the importance of reframing negative self-talk, which is often rooted in fear of failure. People tend to catastrophize potential failures, imagining worst-case scenarios that rarely come to fruition. By challenging these irrational thoughts and replacing them with more balanced and realistic perspectives, individuals can reduce the grip of fear and become more comfortable with taking risks. A critical component of overcoming the fear of failure, according to the chapter, is to break down large, intimidating goals into smaller, more manageable tasks. This approach minimizes the feeling of being overwhelmed and makes the process of taking action less daunting. By focusing on one small step at a time, individuals can begin to make progress without feeling paralyzed by the enormity of the task at hand. The chapter suggests that setting achievable, incremental goals helps build momentum and self-confidence, making it easier to tackle larger, more challenging goals over time. The chapter also discusses the importance of celebrating small victories along the way, as these successes help reinforce the belief that failure is not inevitable and that progress is being made. This positive reinforcement, even for minor achievements, builds resilience and reinforces the idea that taking action is more important than avoiding failure. The chapter further emphasizes the need for self-compassion when confronting the fear of failure. It discusses how individuals often treat themselves harshly when they fail, internalizing feelings of guilt or shame that make it even more difficult to move forward. Self-compassion involves treating oneself with the same kindness, understanding, and patience that one would offer to a close friend facing a similar challenge. The chapter suggests that, rather than berating oneself for perceived failures, individuals should acknowledge the difficulty of the task at hand, recognize their effort, and give themselves permission to fail without attaching shame to the experience. This compassionate approach helps to reduce the emotional weight of failure, making it easier to try again without being consumed by negative feelings. Self-compassion also helps to create a sense of psychological safety, where individuals can take risks and make mistakes without fearing that it will diminish their self-worth. The chapter also discusses the importance of reframing the concept of failure itself. It stresses that failure should not be viewed as an endpoint, but as part of an ongoing process of learning and growth. People who fear failure often see it as a definitive judgment on their abilities or potential, but the chapter encourages readers to view failure as feedback and opportunity to learn what doesn't work and to adjust accordingly. This perspective shift makes failure less threatening and more useful in the pursuit of long-term success. The chapter also introduces the idea that failure is often the result of trying something new or challenging, and that it's in these moments of challenge where real growth occurs. It explains that every failure carries with it valuable lessons that can guide future efforts, helping individuals to adapt, innovate, and refine their approaches until they eventually achieve their goals. Additionally, the chapter highlights the importance of taking action despite the fear. Many people wait until they feel completely confident or ready before taking any steps toward their goals, but this often leads to paralysis by analysis. The chapter emphasizes that the best way to overcome fear is to act in spite of it, to push through the discomfort, and to accept that fear is a natural part of the process. By consistently taking action, individuals build confidence in their abilities and reduce the power that fear holds over them. It's important to note that action doesn't mean taking reckless risks, but rather making deliberate, calculated steps toward the goal, while understanding that failure might happen along the way. The chapter stresses that the goal is not to avoid failure, but to learn to navigate and bounce back from it. The chapter also stresses the importance of surrounding oneself with a supportive community when facing the fear of failure. It highlights how having people who encourage, motivate, and understand your challenges can make it easier to confront fears and take risks. A supportive community can provide reassurance, share their own experiences of failure and success, and help you keep moving forward when the fear of failure feels overwhelming. Having a mentor, coach, or trusted friends who have experienced their own failures and overcome them can be a powerful source of inspiration and strength. Finally, the chapter concludes by reaffirming that the fear of failure is a universal experience, but it is not an insurmountable one. It encourages readers to see failure as an inevitable part of life's journey, not a personal flaw, and to embrace it as a tool for growth and progress. By facing the fear of failure with courage, resilience, and a growth mindset, individuals can achieve the success they desire, not by avoiding failure, but by learning from it and using it to propel themselves forward. The chapter provides the powerful message that the true failure is not in falling down, but in refusing to get back up and keep moving forward, no matter the setbacks. Chapter 7, Mastering Emotional Independence. Chapter 7, Mastering Emotional Independence, delves deeply into the concept of emotional autonomy and its crucial role in leading a fulfilling, empowered life. It begins by addressing how, for many individuals, emotional well-being is often tied to external factors such as other people's opinions, approval or disapproval, and circumstances that are beyond their control. This dependency on outside sources for emotional validation creates a precarious foundation, leaving individuals vulnerable to the moods and judgments of others, or to external events that can trigger emotional instability. The chapter outlines how this dependency can lead to a sense of helplessness or a loss of control over one's emotions, making people susceptible to emotional manipulation, anxiety, or constant mood swings. The author suggests that true emotional independence is about breaking free from this cycle of external dependency and taking full ownership of one's emotional state. Emotional independence is not about suppressing emotions, avoiding difficult feelings, or detaching from relationships, but rather about developing the ability to navigate emotional experiences without becoming overwhelmed or reliant on others for emotional regulation. The chapter explores how emotional dependence often stems from childhood experiences and societal conditioning. For instance, people who grew up in environments where their emotional needs were either ignored or excessively controlled, may develop patterns of seeking constant reassurance or validation from others. In these cases, emotional dependence becomes a learned behavior, ingrained through years of reinforcing the belief that happiness, security, and self-worth are dependent on external approval. The chapter emphasizes that breaking free from this dependency requires significant introspection and self-awareness, as individuals must first recognize the extent to which they rely on others or external situations to dictate their emotions. Developing emotional independence involves acknowledging that while external factors and other people's behavior may influence emotions, they should not have the power to control or define one's sense of self. This process begins with cultivating awareness of one's emotional triggers, those situations or individuals that elicit strong emotional responses, and understanding why these triggers have such a powerful effect. The chapter further explores how emotional independence is intertwined with self-worth. Many individuals tie their self-worth to others' opinions of them, leading to a constant quest for approval, compliments, or recognition. This external validation becomes a crutch, and when it is not received, it can lead to feelings of inadequacy, insecurity, or low self-esteem. The chapter stresses that to master emotional independence, it is essential to develop an internal source of self-worth that is not contingent upon others. This involves accepting oneself fully, flaws and all, and recognizing that one's value is inherent, not dependent on meeting the expectations or judgments of others. By cultivating this internal sense of self-worth, individuals can build the emotional resilience needed to remain balanced and self-assured, regardless of what others may think or say. The chapter emphasizes that true emotional independence requires individuals to be able to validate themselves, acknowledging their own achievements, strengths, and qualities without seeking constant external reinforcement. An important aspect of emotional independence that the chapter addresses is the ability to set and enforce healthy boundaries. Many individuals who struggle with emotional dependence find it difficult to say no to others or prioritize their own needs, fearing rejection or conflict. These people may also allow others to overstep their personal boundaries, which can lead to feelings of resentment, burnout, or emotional exhaustion. The chapter emphasizes that setting boundaries is an essential skill for emotional independence, as it allows individuals to protect their emotional space and preserve their energy for what truly matters. By learning how to communicate one's needs and limits clearly and assertively, individuals can create healthier, more balanced relationships where they are not constantly compromising their own emotional well-being for the sake of others. The chapter also suggests that emotional independence involves not just setting boundaries with others, but also learning to create emotional boundaries with oneself. This means being mindful of one's own thought patterns, emotional reactions, and behaviors, and setting limits on how much emotional energy is invested in situations that do not serve one's well-being. The chapter also delves into the role of mindfulness in mastering emotional independence. Mindfulness, as a practice of being fully present in the moment without judgment, is described as a powerful tool for regulating emotions and reducing emotional reactivity. By cultivating mindfulness, individuals become more aware of their emotional responses as they arise, allowing them to observe their feelings without becoming overwhelmed by them. The chapter stresses that mindfulness helps individuals separate their emotions from their identity, allowing them to see emotions as temporary experiences rather than permanent states of being. For instance, when experiencing frustration or anger, mindfulness allows an individual to notice these emotions without being consumed by them, thereby preventing emotional hijacking. By practicing mindfulness regularly, individuals can learn to respond to emotional triggers more thoughtfully and consciously, rather than reacting impulsively or defensively. The chapter suggests that mindfulness also allows individuals to develop greater self-compassion as they become more attuned to their emotional needs and can address them with kindness and understanding. Another key component of emotional independence discussed in the chapter is emotional regulation, the ability to manage one's emotions effectively, even in challenging situations. The chapter explains that emotional independence doesn't mean suppressing or ignoring emotions, but rather developing healthy ways of processing and expressing them. It offers techniques for emotional regulation, such as deep breathing, meditation, journaling, or talking with a trusted person. These tools help individuals gain clarity and perspective when emotions run high, allowing them to make decisions from a place of calm rather than being overwhelmed by reactive emotions. The chapter highlights how emotional regulation leads to greater emotional resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks and maintain a sense of stability, even in difficult circumstances. The chapter stresses that emotional resilience is an essential skill for navigating life's challenges without becoming emotionally destabilized or overly dependent on external support. The chapter also touches on the role of personal responsibility in emotional independence. Taking responsibility for one's emotions means acknowledging that while external events and people can influence how we feel, ultimately, we are responsible for how we respond to those influences. The chapter encourages individuals to stop blaming others or circumstances for their emotional state and to instead focus on how they can manage their own emotional reactions. This sense of personal responsibility fosters the sense of empowerment and agency, as individuals realize that they have the ability to control their emotional responses and choose how they engage with the world. The chapter stresses that while emotions cannot always be controlled, our reactions to them can be, and by taking ownership of one's emotions, individuals can create a greater sense of emotional balance and independence. The chapter also addresses the importance of cultivating a strong, positive relationship with oneself. It discusses how self-love and self-acceptance are foundational to emotional independence, as individuals who lack self-love are more likely to seek validation from others in unhealthy ways. By developing a strong sense of self, individuals can become less reliant on others for emotional support and validation, and more focused on nurturing their own emotional health. The chapter suggests that practices such as self-care, affirmations, and self-reflection can help individuals build a deeper connection with themselves, which in turn strengthens their emotional independence. Finally, the chapter concludes by reiterating that mastering emotional independence is not a one-time achievement, but a continuous process. It requires ongoing self-awareness, practice, and a commitment to personal growth. It emphasizes that the journey toward emotional independence is unique for each individual, but by focusing on developing self-worth, setting boundaries, practicing mindfulness, and taking responsibility for emotional responses, individuals can cultivate the emotional resilience needed to navigate life with greater ease, confidence, and inner peace. Ultimately, mastering emotional independence allows individuals to live more authentic, fulfilling lives, where they are not swayed by external validation or the emotional turbulence of others, but instead draw strength from within. Chapter 8. Your Time is Your Power. Chapter 8. Your Time is Your Power takes an extensive and detailed look at the idea that time is one of the most valuable and non-renewable resources available to any individual. The chapter begins by emphasizing that while money can be earned, possessions can be replaced, and opportunities may come and go, time is unique in its fleeting nature. Once it is spent, it is gone forever. This scarcity is what makes time such a powerful force in shaping one's life. The chapter highlights how many people fail to realize the value of time because it's often taken for granted or spent mindlessly. Many individuals unconsciously allow time to be dictated by external forces, such as societal expectations, work obligations, and the demands of others, leaving little time for personal aspirations or growth. The chapter points out that these external demands, while important, can easily derail an individual's sense of purpose if they're not carefully managed. It warns that without actively taking control of one's time, people risk living a life that is reactive, always responding to the needs of others, meeting obligations, or putting out fires rather than a life that is proactive and aligned with one's own values, passions, and long-term goals. The chapter explores how time, when not intentionally managed, can easily slip away on activities that are neither important nor fulfilling. It addresses the role of distractions, whether digital, social, or emotional, that prevent people from focusing on what truly matters. With the rise of smartphones, social media, and constant connectivity, people have access to endless streams of information, entertainment, and interactions, often at the cost of personal productivity, introspection, or genuine connection with their deeper values. The chapter discusses how, over time, these distractions can consume vast amounts of precious time, leaving individuals feeling disconnected, unfulfilled, and frustrated at the lack of meaningful progress toward their goals. It calls for a re-evaluation of how one allocates time and energy, pointing out that wasted time on trivial matters only perpetuates the cycle of dissatisfaction and unfulfilled potential. To gain control of their time, the chapter urges readers to shift from a passive approach to a proactive one, where time is seen as a tool that can be harnessed for personal development, creativity, and long-term success. The chapter introduces the idea of setting intentional priorities, where one decides upfront how their time will be spent based on their values and long-term aspirations. It emphasizes that having clarity about what truly matters is crucial to this process. The chapter provides a framework for prioritizing time based on the importance of tasks rather than their urgency, suggesting that individuals often spend too much time on urgent, but less important tasks, while neglecting the more important, long-term goals that lead to real fulfillment. It challenges readers to reflect on whether the tasks they engage in daily are aligned with their core values and goals, and whether these activities truly contribute to their growth and success. By clarifying what matters most, individuals can start to allocate their time more wisely, ensuring that it's spent on pursuits that lead to personal satisfaction and achievement. Another key concept discussed in the chapter is the importance of creating boundaries around time. The chapter highlights that without boundaries, time can be easily consumed by the demands of others. This may involve saying no to requests or invitations that don't serve one's personal goals, or taking control of one's schedule by blocking out time for personal priorities, such as exercise, rest, or creative work. Setting boundaries, the chapter explains, isn't just about protecting one's time from others, but also about protecting oneself from self-sabotaging behaviors, such as procrastination or overwork. The chapter suggests practical strategies for time management, such as blocking out specific hours of the day for particular tasks, or using techniques like the Pomodoro method, which helps break work into manageable intervals to increase focus and reduce burnout. The key, according to the chapter, is learning to say no, whether it's turning down extra tasks at work, avoiding time-draining social media habits, or simply protecting personal downtime to recharge and refocus. By setting clear boundaries, individuals can create a framework that ensures their time is spent on the things that truly matter and contributes to their well-being and success. The chapter also discusses the powerful role of intentionality in time management. It stresses that without intentionality, time tends to slip away in small, unnoticed increments, which cumulatively add up to lost opportunities. The chapter encourages readers to be intentional with every moment, recognizing that small actions and habits, when repeated consistently, lead to significant outcomes over time. It explains that intentionally investing time into meaningful, focused activities, whether it's working toward a career goal, developing a new skill, or nurturing relationships, yields far greater results than haphazardly spending time without purpose. This intentional use of time is framed as a form of self-discipline that supports one's long-term vision. The chapter encourages readers to take proactive steps to ensure that their time is aligned with their desired outcomes, by regularly reviewing and adjusting how they spend their days, ensuring that each activity brings them closer to their ultimate goals. Moreover, the chapter acknowledges that time management is not about overloading oneself with productivity, but about finding a balance between work, rest, and play. The chapter stresses the importance of recognizing that rest and recreation are integral components of effective time use, allowing for a recovery, creativity, and renewed focus. It advocates for regular breaks, time off, and periods of relaxation as crucial to long-term success, as burnout can undermine productivity and well-being. The chapter highlights that when people fail to balance work with sufficient recovery, they often find their energy and motivation diminished, which ultimately hampers their ability to achieve their goals. Therefore, the chapter proposes that effective time management also requires attention to self-care, encouraging readers to make time for activities that recharge and energize them, such as hobbies, exercise, or by balancing periods of productivity with necessary downtime. Individuals can sustain their focus and performance in the long run. The chapter also emphasizes that time is power when it's directed toward personal growth. It explores how continuous learning and self-improvement are essential to personal and professional development, and how dedicating time to growth leads to greater self-confidence, competence, and success. The chapter suggests dedicating specific time to acquiring new skills, engaging in personal reflection, or exploring new areas of interest. It explains that investing time in growth doesn't just improve knowledge or abilities, it also improves one's mindset and capacity to deal with challenges. The chapter encourages readers to be lifelong learners, regularly allocating time to learning something new, whether it's reading, attending workshops, or practicing a skill. By continually growing, individuals ensure that they stay relevant in an ever-changing world, and that they develop the resilience needed to overcome obstacles along the way. Additionally, the chapter offers a reflection on how time is deeply tied to one's sense of purpose and meaning in life. The chapter explains that when individuals take control of their time and align their actions with their core values, they create a life that feels purposeful and fulfilling. Time becomes a means of crafting a life that is meaningful, rather than one that is merely reactive or dictated by external forces. The chapter suggests that, instead of waiting for life to happen, individuals should actively shape their own experiences by using time to pursue passions, connect with others, and contribute to causes that matter to them. By consciously aligning their use of time with their deeper purpose, individuals create a sense of agency and empowerment, turning time into a powerful tool that fuels a life of fulfillment. The chapter concludes by reinforcing that time is not just a commodity, it is the foundation upon which a successful, meaningful life is built. The ability to manage and direct one's time wisely is a skill that can be cultivated through intention, discipline, and self-awareness. The chapter stresses that mastering time management doesn't mean maximizing every moment for productivity, but rather investing time in ways that promote growth, fulfillment, and alignment with one's values. It challenges readers to see time not as a limitation, but as a resource that, when used consciously and purposefully, has the power to create the life they desire. Ultimately, the chapter urges readers to reflect on their relationship with time and to take control of it, recognizing that how they spend their time determines the course of their lives and the realization of their true potential. Conclusion. The conclusion of the book brings all the themes, insights, and concepts discussed throughout the chapters into a powerful and cohesive final message, that the path to a truly fulfilling and empowered life is rooted in taking ownership of one's own life decisions, emotional state, and the way time is spent. The author stresses that in a world that often prioritizes external validation, social expectations, and the approval of others, it's easy to get caught up in seeking validation and living according to the standards of the outside world. However, the book emphasizes that this approach leads to frustration, confusion, and an inability to build a life that is authentic and meaningful. The conclusion calls readers to stop relying on external sources to define their worth, happiness, or success, because such external forces are often transient and unreliable. Instead, it encourages individuals to look inward and take responsibility for their own emotional state, choices, and actions. By doing so, people can break free from the illusion that they need others' approval or permission to live life according to their desires and purpose. The conclusion emphasizes that emotional independence and self-awareness are foundational to this transformation. Without mastering the ability to control one's emotions, reactions, and internal narrative, individuals remain susceptible to external influence, which can derail their ability to pursue their goals and aspirations. The book highlights that true emotional strength comes from within, and that emotional independence is not about isolating oneself from others, but about learning to manage one's feelings, thoughts, and behaviors in a way that is aligned with personal values and long-term goals. By owning their emotions and reframing their thinking, individuals can stop letting external factors or others' opinions dictate how they feel or how they approach life. This mindset shift is key to breaking free from the victim mentality and moving toward a life where individuals are active creators rather than passive recipients of whatever comes their way. Another crucial point made in the conclusion is the role of time in shaping one's future. The book reiterates that time is the most precious resource available to anyone, as it is non-renewable and limited. People often waste time on distractions, procrastination, or pursuits that don't align with their deeper goals, and the book urges readers to reconsider how they allocate their time. By becoming intentional and mindful about how they spend their time, individuals can take control of their life's trajectory and create more space for personal growth, relationships, and pursuits that truly matter. The book challenges readers to ask themselves whether the time they spend on a daily basis is leading them closer to their vision for the future, or if they are merely reacting to the demands of others. By learning how to set boundaries, prioritize what is important, and eliminate time-wasting habits, individuals can begin to harness their time as a powerful tool to create the life they truly want. The conclusion also emphasizes the importance of ongoing growth and self-improvement. Life is not static, and neither should one's development be. The book suggests that personal growth is an ongoing process, not a destination, and that taking consistent, small actions over time will compound to create lasting change. It emphasizes that individuals should continuously strive for self-awareness, learning, and progress in every area of life, whether it's emotional intelligence, professional skills, or physical health. The conclusion warns that complacency, fear of failure, and reliance on external sources of validation can prevent people from reaching their full potential. The book advocates for a mindset of continuous evolution, where failure is not seen as something to be feared, but as a learning experience that fuels future success. It encourages readers to embrace the discomfort that comes with growth, knowing that it is a natural part of achieving their goals. The concept of living intentionally is a core aspect of the book's conclusion. The author argues that living without intention is like drifting on a raft in the ocean, allowing external forces to push you in whatever direction they choose. This approach leads to a life of passive existence, where success is largely based on chance rather than design. In contrast, living with intention means being clear about one's values, vision, and goals, and then making deliberate choices that align with that vision. The book calls for a commitment to making decisions that align with one's purpose, rather than being swayed by short-term desires, distractions, or societal pressures. It encourages readers to build habits and routines that support their long-term vision, making every action intentional and meaningful. Whether it's the way they spend their mornings, how they engage with others, or how they approach their work, the book suggests that by living intentionally, people can maximize their potential and create a life that is both fulfilling and true to their inner selves. The conclusion also reaffirms that self-empowerment is not just about individual achievement, but about creating an empowered mindset that influences every aspect of one's life, including relationships and interactions with others. The book stresses that when individuals take control of their own lives emotionally, mentally, and in how they spend their time, they begin to inspire others around them to do the same. This ripple effect of empowerment creates a cycle of growth and positivity that benefits not just the individual, but their families, communities, and workplaces. The book encourages readers to become leaders in their own lives, recognizing that their choices and actions have a profound impact on those they encounter. By being an example of intentional living, emotional independence, and self-discipline, individuals can contribute to a broader culture of empowerment and authenticity. The book also touches on the importance of resilience in the pursuit of personal goals. While the pursuit of a fulfilling life requires effort and intentionality, it also requires a great deal of perseverance in the face of obstacles. The conclusion acknowledges that life will inevitably present challenges, setbacks, and failures, but it encourages readers to view these difficulties as opportunities for growth rather than insurmountable roadblocks. It urges individuals to cultivate resilience and inner strength that enables them to keep moving forward despite setbacks. By building emotional independence, focusing on long-term goals, and maintaining a proactive mindset, individuals can develop the resilience needed to push through difficult times and come out stronger on the other side. Furthermore, the conclusion highlights the importance of balance in life. The book encourages readers to avoid the trap of overworking or focusing too narrowly on one area of life to the detriment of others. It suggests that achieving true success involves creating harmony between work, personal life, relationships, and self-care. The idea of balance is not about perfection, but about ensuring that all areas of life receive the necessary attention to support overall well-being. The book encourages readers to allocate time for personal reflection, relaxation, and connection with others to avoid burnout and maintain a sense of fulfillment. It also suggests that true success is about living a life that reflects one's values, where each area is nourished and balanced according to personal needs and desires. Lastly, the conclusion serves as a call to action for readers to take immediate steps toward reclaiming their time, emotions, and personal power. The book stresses that the journey to empowerment begins with small, intentional changes and encourages readers to take one actionable step each day toward living a life of purpose and authenticity. Whether it's by setting boundaries, prioritizing time for growth, or choosing to let go of toxic habits, the book emphasizes that the power to change lies within the individual. It urges readers to stop waiting for the right moment and start taking action now, because the path to a life of fulfillment and self-empowerment is one that is created through consistent effort and the commitment to living intentionally. Ultimately, the conclusion reinforces the idea that by taking ownership of one's time, emotional state, and choices, individuals can create a life that is deeply fulfilling and aligned with their true potential.